Okay, today we are speaking to Ines Garcia. So Ines is one of the people that popped in my mind straight away when I was thinking about recording this series and the kind of people I wanted to interview and stories I have. Ines and I have known each other for a number of years now. She's always incredibly interested to talk to, has lots of fun experience and stories, and I'm really, really excited to have Ines here today with us. So hello, Ines.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very, very much for coming here. So let's start off, Ines, by talking a little bit about yourself and the many, many things you do. So people might have come across you for community group leadership, for being an MVP, for being an author, for having courses out there. What have I missed? What else? What else might people know Ines for? What does Ines do?
Oh dear. Well, how long do we have?
So famous, so much stuff going on.
Yeah. So I'm Ines Garcia. I was born in Barcelona. I've been living in the UK for the last 17 years. And that has been pretty much all my Salesforce career. In the context of today as well, to say that I have 25 certifications and kind of counting. I try every year to do 2 or plus, depends. And I've been in the ecosystem about 1.5 decades already. Believe it or not, it just goes really quickly. And I'm a Salesforce MVP Hall of Fame. I'm a freelance, so I work for myself. And I'm a generalist, and I like it. I author a few books, courses. I'm an Agile and climate coach, circular economy professional from an executive program with Cambridge University, a biomimicry practitioner. So do a lot of different things. And life is not just work. I'm quite active contributor for the Scrum Alliance, the Agile Alliance, which we have this sustainability initiative going on. I'm a member of the Pledge 1% since 2018, an ambassador for them. I'm part of Business Declares. I'm one of the Donut Economics Action Lab organization in action. I'm part of the Working Climate community and the Mentorship Center since we started like forever ago. I'm also part of the organizing team from Your Leading. And, I also get involved in my local community, right? Anything that is sort of nature-based solution, from improving the land, the biodiversity, creating spaces for community to emerge, putting pressure as a civic part of my life. I think that's also important to be part of. If you want to talk to me about growing your own food, we can talk about permaculture, agroforestry. Wow. I do some mentoring one-on-one on that sort of things as well. So lots of thanks, Paul.
So do you sleep is probably the first question we should ask based upon that list. Is wow, that is one huge list. So we're going to dive into a bunch of those things throughout the session today, I'm sure. Biomimicry is one we're going to have to talk about at some point, because anytime I see a term like biomimicry or kind of like a genetic algorithm term or things like that, I get so interested in it. So we will dive into that in a bit. But you mentioned 35 certifications, which I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to name them all. I didn't realize there were 35 certifications. Did you ever see
25?
Oh, 25. I thought you said 35. Sorry. But even so, 25. Like, I didn't realize there were 25. I don't know if have you ever seen you ever bumped into Chuck Liddell with his sash?
Oh, right, with all of them.
Yeah, so there was a moment. So Chuck Liddell, who is another MVP and all-round superstar, used to have a sash with, like, scout badges on there. And he used to have a little scout badge for each one, and at one point he had everything. So yeah, 25 is still a massively high number that is rather unbelievable. So you mentioned as well you have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for 15 or 17 years, a long time now. So how did you get started? Because I think you and I would have started around the same sort of time then. And Salesforce was not really that big a thing then. Mm-hmm. I mean, there wasn't really that many products. I think when I started, there was Sales Cloud and this new thing called Service Cloud had just come out. So yeah, I think you predate me a little bit. So, I mean, was it just you and Mark Benioff when you started? Yeah, what was going on?
Sure. No. So sorry. So before I tell you the story, I feel I need to clarify, right? Because I just check lots of different things that I do every day. And how I like to synthesize my work is to help either individuals, teams, or organizations to deliver better value. And once we do that, reduce waste of time, waste of effort, waste of finances, but also of materials and energy. And I think that, again, we'll speak later, it's becoming more and more important. So really to focus into what matters and essentially to leave the place better than how we found it. The place, the products and services that we are involved, sort of enhancing, also the people and beyond just people in a team and your customers, and the planet that we inhabit. So hopefully that sort of clarifies in 2-3 sentences all my myriad of adventures.
No, it does. That's really interesting. And we're going to go off tangent already before you even had a chance to answer the first question out, which is, so I really like that, because one of the things I've always kind of tried to do and tried to reiterate to people from a technical perspective is when you go into a system, when you look at the code base, no code is perfect. There is, I wrote some code this morning. Will I go back to that code within 3 weeks and go, which moron wrote this? Why have they done this wrong? You can have all the best intention in the world, but you make the best choices you can at the time. I think that's even one of the principles, like in agile development, even, is that people make the best decisions they can given the information they have at the time. And so I think it's really interesting that, and I've never really thought about this, of not just expanding that principle of leaving the system, or leaving, and we'll say the system as a general concept here, better than when you joined it, but including into that system both the people and the planet, because it's one of those things that, you've probably heard the wonderful maxim of there's 3 things within within making a change, which is the people, the processes, and the technology. And the technology is easy, and the processes we want to leave in there and improve them, as we've already said. But the people is a really interesting aspect. So tell me then, how do you go about making the people and the planet better in the way you're delivering work?
Right. So I think it's important to realize that we don't live in a vacuum. Even when you look in a single application or something like that, that has an interaction with either other application or humans. And so how we design systems, I think it's important to think, there is this term of like human-centered approach or human-centered design and things like that, but it's going a little bit beyond that. It's not just the user of the system or the consumer that you're going to have, on the checkout page or something like that, but it's also what are the ripple effects to everybody else who is not invited in the conversation, who is not part of our consumer base, and we make a lot of decisions every day, and a lot of those, just because we don't post something who's not been invited, then we miss out. Like, for example, the fact that even in Salesforce, when you're searching for a record, you need at least 3 words, 3 letters to be able to start seeing the results from a search. Not everybody's first name contains at least 3 letters. So things like that, I think it's important to think about it. And then as well, when you're doing certain launch campaign or whatever it is, where are you putting your money? Are you putting your money where you want the world to go? Meaning, for example, is the space that you're hiring a space of community, a space that will have abundance to where that thing happens? In the way that we maybe do, I come from communication background, so in the way that we do maybe mass communications, are we focusing into the value that that person will get upon receiving that message? Or are we blasting what we want to tell? Are we blasting to everybody because it's easier? Or are we reducing the consumption of the electricity, maybe, and the post-production things to focus into what matters? And if we talk about energy, I can tell you a lot of different things, right? So sending an email is costing amount of energy as boiling your kettle. Like, we think that the cloud and all these like inventions that we do are very intangible, but they have a very physical side of the coin, right? We're using rare earth materials. We are already consuming almost 2 Earths for how we're behaving as a species today. And if everybody was behaving like we do in the northwestern side of the world, we'll be consuming 5 Earths. Well, here are the news. We only have 1 people.
Yeah.
So we really need to evolve in the way that how we look at things. And that's the instances that we do, the decisions that we take. Like at the moment, we can go into a tangent beyond that. We're chucking AI to everything and beyond. And that has a huge cost on water, energy, and we need to make conscious decisions on that. Not only that, but as well, like large language model, it will never be complete. It will never be diverse enough. It's making decisions in past data. It's making likelihood decisions. Do you want to innovate?
Yeah, I have this bugbear about the current AI hype and fad and machine learning. So again, speaking tangentially here is I think you and I have bumped into each other at sort of different conferences where I've spoken about AI and machine learning and things like that. And it's a real pet passion area of mine. But the big problems I have at the moment, number one, is that people like say, I want AI. And it's like, well, that's like saying you want a song. Do you want a concerto or do you want like a nursery rhyme? They're 2 different ends of the spectrum and all different ways in between. Do you want some jazz that's an instrumental piece, or do you want a rap? There's so many variations in there that are all covered by this broad term. Excuse me. And then on top of that, I was explaining to someone the other day that like the current setup for these models is very much around, especially these large language models, is really it's really like having a parrot where you teach the parrot to say back what it's heard. Yeah, that's all these large language models are, is just having a lot of parrots sat in a room, and you say to the parrot, do you want a cracker? And the parrot says, yes, I want a cracker. And you go, oh my God, the parrot's so intelligent. It's like, no, the parrot is just repeating what it's learned to repeat after 100 times of you saying, do you want a cracker? And they're really, really powerful and can be very, very useful. But I think I completely agree with you that the current drive to have them in everything and used everywhere is, I think, detrimental in just a myriad of ways, because people aren't really focused on what their usage for it is. I'm of the opinion that if you want to invest the money in AI, it should be being invested in, stopping people having to do jobs that are dangerous or harmful to them, or require long hours and all these things, and instead focus on those things rather than, can we get it to produce a decent enough image to mimic what an artist could produce based upon everything it's seen. But I didn't think so much about the environmental impact, but it's a really, as you say, I mean, with the chips and the scale of the resource usage of that, it's going to have a massive, massive implication for the planet if we keep on going.
Yeah, it does. And if you give me a second and a half, I probably can pull some data, because I'm preparing a keynote for the Lean Agile London this year. And that's one of the things I want to bring, because we're so used to we are so far removed from, there's a huge feedback delay between us doing technology and perhaps the emissions and the results and the effects that has. And that feedback delay, it keeps us too far removed for us to realize what we are doing. We need to be able to account with these things and to see them in shorter feedback loops so we can make informed decisions. And whereabouts is that?
I think I think, just building on that, I think there's a general problem in tech that we think we can solve every problem. There's a huge thing that have you ever heard that story of the engineers in San Francisco? They had a bunch of tech engineers that came together to try and solve the problem of overcrowding on the roads and pollution, and how to transport people around. And basically they just reinvented buses. And it's one of those things, is like, yes, you've reinvented something that has been there for a good 100 years now. Why are we not just investing more in well-known answers that do that? And I agree that there is one of the problems with tech is that there's often a we can solve all the problems, follow us.
Yeah, so just really quickly, data center power surge already 6-fold. So there is a huge capacity concerns, and also how our electricity grids are going to hold the ever-increasing request of consumption. AI and quantum computing is driving mainly that spike in energy use. Electricity used by data center has risen 400%. The internet uses 3.7% of the global carbon emissions, equivalents, right? Produced by, this is more than the entire airline industry. And these figures are expected to double by 2025, right? That's next year. So, we know that the accumulation of data alone doesn't drive better decisions. We know that the grid capacity can handle this forecast. So how can we better respond to change?
So, I mean, it's a really interesting point there, because I suppose one of the interesting things to think about with that is, how am I trying to word this? So one of the things I think is really important when it comes to these sorts of discussions in, relating to the environment, and how we use, once everyone agrees that we're not going to get everyone to switch off everything with electricity overnight, and that's not happening. I think there's a conversation about what the best use of resources is to minimize the overall load, but still allow people to function in the best way possible. And I think it's really interesting where you say, so the internet uses 3% of, was it 3.5%?
3.7, yeah,
3.7% of global energy capacity. That's a huge number, and as you say, bigger than airlines and everything else. What would be interesting is to see, okay, well, if we had more people work remotely and less people work in an office, what does that do to energy consumption? I don't have the answer to this. I'm just playing with ideas out loud. But what does that do to? Because there's less cars on the road, more people working from home. That would increase the usage of energy for things like the internet, as more people would require broadband for video calls and things like that. But what does it do on the flip side to energy consumption elsewhere in terms of pollution elsewhere? And I think that there's someone out there that needs to do some very, very detailed, complex maths to start balancing those things out. Because if you could turn down one in one area, but it increases slightly in another area, is that resource balance going to work?
Well, and that's where we need to come to holding more than one thought at once, right? There is no one solution for anything, even when you're tackling one very specific problem in your very specific instance of Salesforce, for example, just to bring it back a little bit. There is always more than one way to solve it, and they will have consequences that you probably won't be able to see. Now we're talking about the biosphere, and what have we done essentially over the last 100 to 100 years. So there is not one solution to what it needs to happen. So just switching to work from home or just switching to electric vehicle. Context-based, I think, and you need to see the ripple effects of what that will happen. So you have, and you have a lot of people actually working on this, and to see better computation of making better decisions at scale into how cities sort of consume energy, materials, transport, and ecosystem services like air pollution, everything else. How do they do it in a way that they can scale over time, reduce the pressures? We can talk about a lot of things, but sorry, I feel I'm done.
No, it's really interesting. This is exactly what these conversations are about, because it's where you bring it back to that Salesforce piece. In my second Apex book, I do a big bit on performance profiling, and one of the things that is interesting in there is this idea of, I say it's interesting that I wrote it. I think it's interesting. We'll let the reader decide. But I talk about order analysis. So whenever you're profiling something, you have these ideas of order of magnitude and how things scale. So do they scale flatly? Do they scale linearly? Or do they scale quadratically or exponentially, and all these things? And what's that trade-off? So when just to kind of give people an analogy, when you're doing something in code, you can say, okay, well, if you bulkify your queries, you are doing one query no matter how many records you get in, versus doing a query each time in a loop, which scales linearly. And that might mean you're consuming more heap resources, but you're consuming less of a more precious resource, shall we say, and that's an interesting way of balancing it back up. So it is, there is a big piece around counterbalancing. And as you say, there is no single right answer, which using that lovely segue back to our initial question and conversation. So how did you get started in Salesforce then, Ines?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to give you a link as well for the show notes and
Yeah,
stuff in
please
terms
do.
of
Yeah.
some thoughts of AI and things that we can take decisions upon, I suppose. But yeah, so once upon a time, I was helping a company on a interim placement, and that was centered around their CRM roadmap. And we had a great, I think, a relatively new appointed CEO that used to work for China Trust and PepsiCo and all these things. And he had the experience of how powerful Salesforce platform could be for an organization. And so we're going to get Salesforce. We look at each other like, we're going to sell what now? I don't know. So yeah, and I come from business transformation background, and I really enjoy trying to figure it out how things work. I mean, some of you already probably got that from my random thoughts just now, but is and how things can be like optimized for continuous improvement, perhaps. So relatively quickly, I found myself playing with what was called back in the days the Salesforce Fundamental Workbook.
Oh yes,
700 pages of thinking, because I'm a pre-trailhead all the other here, right? And I was doing that sort of in my free time, and I found it super enlightening. Me, myself, and I soon enough could build what's if I don't know, magic maybe, that not only did work but actually improve efficiency and the life of the people involved. So since I never really turned back, I got my admin cert. I think I couldn't find a way to do the exam in London, so I basically went to Swindon for a weekend because that was the only place I could do it. So so that was like my tourist time in Swindon. Never been there before. Anyway, so you can say I can take placements as an agile coach, which I've done certain certifications and things over the years as well. Scrum Master, maybe project delivery lead, but also training, learning and development, change management, adoption, solution design, delivery architecture, admin, I don't know, tech admin, sales, service experience cloud, Omni as well, bots, marketing cloud, Pardot or engagement, or whatever it's called nowadays, nonprofit, the pack and the cloud, stuff around integrations, industry, things like net zero, the data cloud. I mean, you name it. And then you asked me about the community and really how I got into the community. It was just by not knowing and Googling stuff. And that will lead me to this forum called success.salesforce.com. And it was really amazing how people, like within minutes, all around the globe will try to solve my business problems. And, this is not normal. I mean, I think the community in Salesforce is sort of the advantage that no one can compete with. So you don't have another vendor. They try, but it ain't the same.
Yeah. And so two questions. The first one then is, I remember when I first started doing Salesforce, and again, like the community and all the questions and answers. Is there any one person you remember like being just one of those people that you were like, oh, they really know their stuff, like someone who you might have got to know now as a friend or whatever through the community? So for me, the first couple of people I remember seeing answering just a ton of questions online were Keir, or Bob Buzzard, for everyone who only knows his alter ego. So Keir Bowden, Bob Buzzard, Matt Lacey was answering a ton. People like Wes and Anup and a load of people were doing it. And I remember sort of having the same thing of like just asking loads of questions. And I remember the workbooks as well. They were really good. I loved those workbooks. But yeah, was there anyone that was like the same for you, who like you kind of ended up going and looking at their stuff and, oh, that one was really good, and then like you met them later and it's like, oh yay, you get to meet your heroes and it's not disappointing. And that's right, Keir, you can have it said here that you were a hero that I met and it wasn't disappointing.
Just to check other names, I suppose. One is Chris Edwards. He was a lot in the forums, and then over the years, I was really following their Salesforce Weekly sort of site. And then somehow we end up doing talks in Dreamforce together and many other inventions. So that's been someone that, does know his stuff, is very altruistic, and he cares. Which are things that I don't think are very easy to find. So, and also I have to talk about Steve Mullet, because he's so funny, which puzzled me at the beginning. I didn't fully understand some of the jokes, but yeah, super helpful as well. Like, really in the forum, it's really nice to have peers that you can bounce things with after so many years over there. It's quite nice. Even today, every day I will spend my morning coffee doing a bit of that every day. It's quite nice to see as well how it evolves.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yes. Chris is one of the good guys. Like, I've worked with Chris. He is just a thoroughly nice person. Irritatingly so, that he's so smart and so nice and so lovely. And just too nice for his own good. And yeah, Steve Mo. Everyone knows about Steve Mo. He is literally the man that has kept those forums going in some instances, I feel. So
certainly. I think I saw him with a Dreamforce 2017 or something. He just picked me up and turned me around, and everybody was like, "What's happening?" It's really funny. He really means really well, but has an edge to his humor.
Yes, it's one of the things I like about the Salesforce sort of ecosystem, though, is that there was a post recently by Charlie Isaacs, who was saying that he'd for his April Fool's joke this year, he posted that he was leaving Salesforce and retiring, and some CEO on LinkedIn sent him a message saying, "I'm glad I wouldn't have to see your clownish antics anymore, and you don't behave professionally and all this." And it's ridiculous, because for anyone who hasn't met Charlie, he is one of the nicest people you could ever meet. He's always willing to give up his time. The fact that he happens to be a CTO for Salesforce is just a side gig for him. I'm pretty sure he is. He's just one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And at Dreamforce on the final day, when there ends up always being that kind of dance circle in Moscow ground floor. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that every time I've gone past that thing and been normal and British and just kind of shuddered away from a dance area, because not dancing in public, terrible. But I'm pretty sure I've only ever seen Charlie in the middle of that thing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the instigator every year, just going along and getting that started. So so another one of the good guys.
My April's first joke.
What was you were signed by Salesforce, weren't you, to be like head of net zero or something like that? I remember.
Voice of the Earth.
Voice of the Earth. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah. Who wants a bit of a giggle? Go and have a look, because the thread is quite funny, and also it shows you how much people don't read until the end of things. So another one with like overload of data.
And anything that is posted on April the 1st, just always ignore. Just turn the internet off for that day. Come back the next day, and then you'll see it. So with all of these different things going on, and you mentioned you pick up work as sort of project delivery lead, agile coach, scrum master, all these different things. And I think one of the interesting things about people that have been particularly in the Salesforce ecosystem for sort of the length of time we have, is that because when we started, everything was so new, like, you tend to have had the ability to touch more products.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that more junior people that start today find it really hard to do anything outside. Like, they'll end up being a Sales Cloud person, because Sales Cloud now is sales and CPQ and Revenue Cloud and all these blah, 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 other things on top. So it's really interesting you're doing, you have that variety and spread. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the Agile piece, because one of the things that you are well known for and that you have done is obviously write a couple of books. And the first one is, I only have the first one here. The other one is on a Kindle, and showing it up on a Kindle is not as exciting, but we have Becoming More Agile with Salesforce, whilst delivering Salesforce, sorry, by Ines. And it's a very, very good book. Definitely go and buy it. There'll be a link in the show notes. So talk me through why you decided to write that book and the process, because I know you and I have spoken about it together when we've sort of been having drinks and events and things, because you self-published, didn't you? So tell me the genesis of the book, and how that was.
So the contents of the book, or the reason of the book, had been on my mind for quite some time. I can do podcasts, I can do talks, trainings, Now, that gets me as far as that gets me, right? Both in depth and in the reach and extent, because I have limited hours a day, as much as I like to change that. But so this idea of the book had been in my mind for at least a couple of years before publishing it. And in 2020, I had the privilege to be for a month off in Japan. I went for Japan Dreaming, the conference, which was at the end of January. And there you get it, the infamous 2020.
I was going to say, you timed that really well. Just
Exactly. Yeah, no, super privileged to be out and about for that time. And then, what happens when I came home. So that infamous 2020 gave me the headspace for reflection. And one of the things that came to the surface, it was this book, right? So as soon I hit the ground in London, I got myself a target of number of words a day. And every day I will wake up, brew my cup of tea, don't look at my phone or anything else whatsoever but my manuscript, and go for it. And although it was a rather odd year, here we are, right? So I wrote the book to share with the community that there is a better to deliver Salesforce, but to deliver better Salesforce value and do that sooner, safer, and happier, right? So that's the reason of packing up experiences. Like, the book is full of real life stories, a bit tweaked, especially names and things, of things that I work with, some of which are amazing and there's a lot to learn from, but many as well are not amazing, and we can learn from those too, right? You have frames, you have tips, you have experiments, things for you to try out, right? So into this sort of bundle of joy. So yeah, have a look, and you guys tell me what you think. I try to showcase peers as well. So if you take pictures of things that you've been doing, you keep me updated and stuff. I try to showcase others, right? So Agile and Salesforce doesn't have to be Ines, and I'm trying to normalize the conversation that there is a better way.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. As someone else who spent the time locked indoors writing, COVID was brilliant for just being. I mean, COVID was terrible. Before we get that, snipped anywhere. COVID was terrible, and it was a very sad time. But as someone who was writing a book, it was brilliant to just be told, no, you can't go out anywhere. You've got to stay indoors and write. And yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So first of all, one of the things I really liked about the book was just how full of practical information it was. So for those who I've read the book, I'm going to reread it and review it for the YouTube channel. But it is just a very practical book and full of actually helpful information. I've read a lot of Scrum books. Way back in the day, I used to be Scrum certified, and a lot of them are just very much astronauty of like, this is what you will do and this is how it works and isn't it wonderful and everything's perfect. And that's what I liked about yours, was that there's a good admission in there of everything is not always perfect, things go wrong, and that's where we learn the most. I will say quite happily that I've had so many projects that have gone, not so many projects, I've had a number of projects that have gone awry. I have more successes than failures, quite substantially, but for the ones that have gone wrong, that's probably where you learn the most. And so I think, there's a load of really, really good information in there for definite. I think it's really good as well you hit upon that. And I don't know whether you meant to hit upon this so much, but that thing of sitting down and doing it every morning. I get asked by people all the time what it's like writing a book. So for my books, I had 2 different publishers. So I had someone else kind of imposing deadlines, but I'm quite a toward motivated person anyway. I don't kind of run away from deadlines. I run towards getting things done and the excitement of stuff. And every time someone says to me, like, what's it like writing a book? Is it easy? Should I do it? My first question is, can you set aside 30 minutes to an hour every day? Like, without fail, even if it means you're sat there, on the train, I used to, I started writing my first one just before COVID hit, and I'd have 2 hours on the train down to London every week and 2 hours back where I just sit there and I do nothing else. Right? Like, can you find that time? Because consistency on it is the hardest thing. If you cannot find half an hour to an hour every day, you'll never get a book written, no matter how hard you try. It's killer like that, and you get the fun of the blank page, don't you? As well, it is that you just sit there and I don't know if you had this, but I had half hour or hour long spells where I'd sit there and I'd write sort of 5 sentences, and then have another like hour where I'd write 500 words, and it just flow. It is a tough thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. And I think for me as well, it was a way to do it in an iterative sort of incremental approach. I have fairly define a structure that people seems to like quite well. So I repeat this in the other books as well, having that structure. So, and then even when I'm tackling a project, right? So you are right in the weeds of the thing and you need to suddenly switch into something else. I always write myself bullet points of what's happening next. So you reduce your time switching waste. And with the book was the very same, right? So as soon as I have the key ideas that I want to tackle, or the key learnings, or the key whatever, and then it's just so much easier than starting from blank canvas every time. You help yourself, your future self. That's why I do documentation as I go with my projects. This is not a thing at the end. If we just look at life as a complex adaptive system, we'd understand that we can't foresee the future. So incremental approach really, really helps in you adapting the ever-changing environment.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really, really good way of looking at it. I found it was easiest for me to, I wrote down the story. I've written a programming book, so when I say the story, it's a tenuous link here, but I sat down and was just like, what would I want if I were teaching Apex? How would I want to go through it, and what would be the story I'd want to go through piece by piece? And that's how I found it easy. But that, as you say, it gives you that thing. If you get to the end of a chapter, go, oh, I need to add this in, or I need to do this, and you can take it piecemeal and bite size rather than sat there thinking I've got to do everything at once.
Yeah,
which is when it gets scary.
Sorry, you asked me as well about the self-publishing, and I can try to touch it in a very short way. You essentially have 3 ways to publish a book. One is with traditional retail publishers, like high street publishers, Wiley and the like. The royalties are very tiny. They have a very set ways of doing. And there are certain things, if somebody really is really serious and can put that hour plus a day, then I can go into detail. So that's sort of one very traditional way to publish a book. Everything has plus and minuses. Then you have the hybrid approach, which are, especially for Salesforce, you have 2 or 3 publishers that are almost self-publishing, but they enforce certain deadlines. They will pre-print things in bulk because it's cheaper, debatable if you account for environmental capital. But that royalties are very small as well. And then the third way is self-publishing, and that's the route that I went. Why? Because I wanted the book that you can hold with your hand. I wasn't impressed with the writing deal offers that I was given, and I don't want to be forced to write a book of 40,000 words or 60,000 words if it doesn't need to. We are overloaded with information that we don't need. So the last thing I want is chuck more into the monster. So that was one, the format and the ability, how I wanted to structure, and how hopefully sounds like me, the book. And then the last thing is because unfortunately, majority of the books end up in landfill. The fact that I was self-publishing, it gave me the opportunity that if you really want the physical copy, only when you buy the book, it goes into a queue to get printed. So zero materiality waste in that sense. So
I mean, thankfully, I'm sure that mine's been a bestseller and that there's no waste anywhere. But no, you're completely right. It's both of my books are with publishers, as are the majority of the ones I've got there's a big pile here for me to read on the thing, and it's there are some pros and cons with that. I think, were I to do a third book, I think I'd probably self-publish just to give it a try and see how it works. But it is a difficult balance, and I think for a first-time author, like, one of the things I would really say that impressed me in the kind of conversations we had was that you self-published for the first time. I think for me, now I've done 2, I probably feel I could self-publish, but I'm super impressed. You were like, I'm going to go do it and go for it. And I at least had a what was the phrase? That's an advance. Like, there was a small. I mean, let's be clear, the advance was not tens of thousands of pounds. And no one. I don't think anyone's written a technical book who has ever decided to have it as a profitable way of living their life. But it's definitely it was definitely a more it was a useful thing to be able to say, okay, I have that in there to do that. So you did book number 1, and it was very well received and loved by all. And then you went on and wrote book number 2, and I don't have a physical copy of book number 2 to wave around here, unless you have one to hand really quickly to wave. But your second book is Sustainable Happy Profits. Yeah,
that's the one.
So did you? So tell us a little bit about the book. What its kind of core message is, and as a leading question is, did you have the genesis of the idea for book 2 when you finished book 1? I know that once I'd finished, I was actually writing both of mine concurrently, so I tried to make them flow from one another and had the idea of the second when I was writing the first there. Did you think about the second book while you were writing the first, or was it a completely independent thought train?
The book 2 started before.
Okay.
So basically, I went on a quest, started in 2019, to find organizations that, in fact, they were evolving the way they look at business in a way that I could learn stuff and then downscale it at my own LTD, my own company level, right? So if I can downscale it to a one-person company, then I can really help many different sizes of clients. So that was the plan. And then through that journey of 3 years of exploration, patterns emerge, strategies, mechanisms emerge, and finishing book 1 sort of gave me the courage of bundling this up for book 2. And again, in that one, I just ran away from certain publishers. I'm sorry. And still, if somebody knows an ethical publisher, let me know, because to date, I haven't been very impressed with who I speak with. Anyway, call to action.
Yeah. Well, if not, I look forward to the Ines Garcia publishing house. And there's your next job. So the book focuses on how to take your business and run it in a more sustainable manner, and the practices around that without having to sacrifice profit. There's that view that often, yes, you can be green, but you can't be green and be profitable, is kind of the terrible, incorrect view of things. And I suppose that's what you're trying to sort of discredit and talk against. Would that be fair? Or
I mean, the fact that there is a better way to the business and it exists today, right? And when you think about sustainability, it's the ability to sustain, right? And that's not just the product itself, to build it in a way that endures over time. Well, adapts, not just to last, but build to adapt. But it's also about the people and the time and the energy involved in the process and the consumption that existence requires, right? Like, even you have all that app business. Sometimes, people comes with the idea of like, oh, I make an app, I put it in app exchange, and woohoo, money comes in. No, you need to continuously invest in your product, right? So that existence, it has its weight. And if any single part of the process can be maintained over time, then that is unsustainable. And for me, what has come more apparent over the last 5-10 years is that our business as usual is the most unusual. Like, the air pollution contributes to 3.7 million deaths a year. 1 million species are threatened with extinctions. We already converted 75% of the land that is not covered by ice. 6 of the 9 greatest threats to the world are directly, related to the ongoing destruction of us humans, one species. So we can't carry on going on like that, right? I talk about the almost 2 Earths of consumption. I read one thing that stayed with me is that there is more gold in e-waste, right? So this is devices we no longer use. There is more gold on that left on the ground. I mean, what are we doing?
That is, yeah, that's a crazy message. And gold's an interesting one, I think, because it's one of the things I think is hard for people sometimes with this is seeing the dollar value of it, for want of a phrase. And I'm obviously a believer in moving towards a more sustainable planet and trying to change the way we're doing things. But I think there's incorrectly this kind of view often that, as you say, what one and the other aren't the same. If you and we see it at the moment in the way that it's discussed a lot especially in the UK's politics around like, well, net zero is a bad thing because it will stop us from growing and stop us doing things. It's like, well, A, that doesn't necessarily have to be true, but B, well, what's the kind of underlying assumption that there has to be growth is kind of part of the problem there. That's, if you have to have growth and it has to be growing, then that's what a tumor does. It's not very happy and healthy and popular.
Exactly. That's it, right? A tree doesn't just grow taller, it grows its roots, right? We can't just, we live in a finite planet, and we like it or not, aware or not, we are governed by natural laws, right? We also have fallen to the notion that sustainability has to cost money or be at the expense of growing profit. And that's kind of what I wanted to tackle here. Like, there are profitable organizations that are really doing good and doing well. So, I think is there an English sentence of like, oh, you can have it cheap, you can have it good, or you can have it fast, but you can pick 2, right?
Yes. Yes. The triangle for delivery. Yeah.
So you end up with a compromise, with something that is mediocre. And I think, especially in the Agile world, we have in fact confronted that sort of maxim. In a changing world, we need to focus into what matters. We reduce the noise, reduce the waste, and essentially seek value, seek impact. I mean, don't talk to me about, I want to grow. Okay, but for what exactly, right? You may need to have profit to stay in the game, but that's not an organizational vision. Don't tell me that that's your mission as a company. That's not it. That's not why you exist, right? So, yeah. So the book really is from that quest, because there is a better way to the business.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting. There's a few of the companies I sort of advise and help on the side. One of them I was talking to recently about growth, and they were saying they want to grow the company. I was like, okay, well, why? And it's so that they want to help more clients, a broader variety of clients. They want to kind of do different things, which is all very good. And kind of one of the conversations we had is about, well, what do you mean by growth? Is that growing your revenue or growing your profit, or neither? It's all growing them in line. And it ended up with a really interesting interesting conversation, because I said to them, well, if you let's say they're a £1 million a year organization, I said, and say you're making £50,000 in profit on £1 million. I said, if you're a £2 million organization, then make £50,000 in profit. Is that, you've doubled in size? Is that better? And it is that sustainability piece, as you say. Like, I think people view sustainability quite rightly, as you mentioned, as this thing of it just being a green environmental thing, rather than it being sustainability as a core principle for seeing your organization as an organism itself. Building those roots out and helping that grow, rather than just growing tall and then collapsing down. So yeah, it's very, very interesting way of thinking about it. So does this one of the things that I know that you're interested in is biomimicry. So does this feed into biomimicry, or am I making a terrible connection here and you're just going to laugh at me?
No. I mean, we can talk a little bit about biomimicry. So biomimicry is So it has certain principles, and to its core is to create conditions that are conducive to life. So imagine if that was our mantra in the way that we behave, we did business, we feed ourselves, our healthcare system, right? Creating conditions that are conducive to life. This is not how we're behaving as a species at the moment. So to its core is to understand that when we are trying to solve a problem, the solutions are already here. We have 3.8 billion of years of life existence, and the ones that are alive today hold the answers for our problems, not the fossils, right? And so in the way that how do you hold information? How do you generate energy? How do you create community? How do you pass knowledge? How hold moisture, clean the air? I mean, these solutions exist, right? So it's having this understanding of if we quiet our cleverness, right? And observe and learn from patterns, mechanisms, strategies that already exist and apply those to our designs, we can in fact move in a way that is conducive to life. And yeah, maybe we can cover in another session, but for example, in London Calling last year, I did 6 principles to guide our design solutions, and the 6 principles were biomimicry. Went through each one of them, show a specific organism that behaves in such a way. How can we extrapolate those ideas into how we organize ourselves in teams and organizations? Also, how we take those ideas into development in Salesforce, right? So those things can be very tangible in the way that we work and the decisions that we take. So that's in a nutshell. Biomimicry, look outside, the genius with the answers are here.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'll put a link to that because it's a London schooling talk, so they're all online everywhere. So I'll find a link to that and post it in the show notes because that will be one I'll definitely go away and look into. So it's an interesting concept, that and how you look at things. And you mentioned about how we feed ourselves and how we sort of look after ourselves. And one of the things I know that you were one of the kind of drivers behind during that wonderful COVID period where people were stuck indoors was food force, which again, one of the things that's lovely about Salesforce is how the word force can be applied to the end of any other word. I think if you take a noun or any noun or adjective and add the word force to it, I think you can get a valid kind of new community that's interested in a certain thing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to there being I mean, yeah, there's all sorts, isn't there? There's bald force as well, and all different ideas. So, so talk to me about food force and how that got started, and because you've also got a third book out, which is the Food Force recipe book.
Yeah, that's the one, Food Force for Good, which is the 101 plant-based deliciousness of the world. So all started in 2020. When we couldn't go out, and this community, how it is, we are great uplifters, so we started to share some home cooking adventures, and hashtag keeps going, so you can look at Food Force even today. To me, all of that, it felt very much that we were just living in such a privileged position. So the focus for this effort, for the book in particular, was bringing trailblazers around the world. We put together this 101 deliciousness, not just 101 because anybody can cook them, right? We aim to make it super easy instructions. There are a few Easter eggs on that, even how to measure and things, because it's a global stuff. So we try to make it very easy. But also 101 because there are, in fact, 101 recipes on it.
Okay.
And food is a great equalizer, right? So that's from royalty to poverty to we all need to eat in order to survive. The dinner table is also a center for relationships, from romantic meals to maybe family dinners, business meetings, catch-ups over, I don't know, a snack or something like that. Celebration, it happens around food. So food is not just a necessity, but it's a pleasure. And with so many different traditions attached to it. So in the little book, every recipe has a tiny explanation of, maybe it's grandma recipe or where this comes from, and stuff, which is quite nice. So whilst in our modern world, some of us have plenty, some do not have enough. And so with this book, all the royalties go to Action Against Hunger, to support, the Sustainable Development Goal of no hunger. Right. So if you want a recipe book, you're looking for whatever, if you want to give, try to find things of purpose. There are many things that we can do. So if you are to buy something with meaning that's supposed to support somebody else. So yeah, every single royalty, every sales of the book, it just goes straight into Action Against Hunger, and that's the SDG 2. So
that's fantastic. That's brilliant. Yeah, there'll be a link to that again in the show notes, a link to everything that Ines is doing. It'll be a hugely long show notes with everything Ines has got. But no, I love that, and I think that's one of the things that I wanted to capture, particularly in these conversations, is the amazing stuff that people are doing for others that just happens to have come about because of a connection via Salesforce. The people you were sharing that hashtag with and started chatting to and working with on the book, the only reason you were connected initially was because of Salesforce, which it's crazy to think, that you were connected through some random IT system that happened to be implemented 15 years ago or 17 years ago by a CEO that had happened to use it once. And from that, you're able to do some real good in kind of helping people who aren't in as privileged a position. So that's, very inspiring work. And thank you so much, Ines, for doing that sort of thing. So thank you. So the other thing, and what I think has come across probably to the people listening or watching this as we've been discussing is that Ines is involved in many, many, many things. And one of the things that I know you've also been involved in was your leading, and I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly. Pretty sure I am, which is an event for user group leaders and community group leaders rather than for the community themselves. And so tell me a little bit about how that got started, because I think it's really interesting. You've got an event for leaders of the community groups rather than, I'm going to say rather than the broader community itself. So it's not like London's Calling or Your Dreaming or Dream Ole or things like that. It's more focused on actual community group leaders, yeah?
Yeah, so actually your leading started back in 2019, sort of an appended day after Your Dreaming conference, and since then had different flavors from it. So the 2019, I was contributing as a speaker. So it was a couple tracks during the day and different sort of sessions and stuff like that. Then 2020, nothing. Then 2021, I think in 2020, I started helping out. And what we did, it was mini sessions for leaders and sort of how we adapt into, strange times and how we keep our communities together and stuff. Then 2021 was 21 or 22, sort of last minute in Amsterdam about picking up plastic and, sort of bringing people together and stuff. Last year, it was in Brussels, where were we?
Was it, I think I remember looking at this earlier on, was it Antwerp in Belgium?
It must be Brussels. No, it must be Brussels, yeah. Anyway, and that was Brussels. All day. We had a beautiful space when we were talking about spaces. So all the food came from within 10 miles. They had a lot of ethics in the way that they prepare the menu, who they employ and everything. So, we can make these decisions in our groups, in our jobs, right? So sometimes it's thinking a little bit beyond is where do we put the money? Put the money where you want the world to go. And then we looked at sort of different layers of the onion, like self, our teams, our communities, and the wider world. So we look at donut economics and how to apply some of that into our group. So it's quite niche, right? So we focus to support and elevate and learn from each other for community group leaders, for conference organizers, MVPs, right? We do these things for the love, but we are not event organizers. We all of this in our free time with the best intentions, but this is not our main job. So there is a lot of things that we can cross-pollinate and help each other. This year is all to be confirmed, but we're hoping to support the inaugural Fest Windsor Ohana in Berlin. So most likely will be the day after, but against the time, finding a space.
To be confirmed, so watch this space. But that's cool. I mean, it's you hit on two interesting things there. Number one, which kind of resonates with what we've been saying about net zero and sustainability, and how, and as you say, think about where you want the world to go, is about the food, and getting it all from within 10 miles. My favorite thing about community events, not my favorite thing, one of my favorite things is the food. And you've spent enough time with me in real life, Ines, to know exactly what I'm like. And anytime we're stood there and there's canapes going around or some food about, I'm a happy man. But I love going to the likes of Dream Olé and London's Calling and French Touch Stream and all these different events, and there being more local food there. If you go to as a British person, I find that we get sometimes lumped in Spain, and a lot of British people go to Spain and do not ever sample actual Spanish food, and it's fantastic. And that's one of the things I love about Dream Olé is you're going there and there being real Spanish food that's being out and about, and you're getting to eat some of that that's super nice and fresh and local. And the same with the other events. So I think it's a really good way of both doing good, but also I think preserving some of the uniqueness of the events. There's no point going to an event in Barcelona and getting the same food that you could get in the middle of London or wherever it would be. That to me seems a waste of a trip. The other thing that you hit upon, just relating to kind of people doing this as like an interest and a hobby, is I think there's a really interesting thing here around kind of the MVP ecosystem, the Trailblazer community ecosystem, and things like where people forget that the likes of yourself, myself, and the other MVPs and other community group leaders and things like that don't get paid, don't do anything because there's anything in them for them, really. If you have been an MVP and think that it is, or if you haven't been an MVP and think it's a world of swag, free tickets, and fortune and fame, it is his laugh tells you all you need to know. You get yes, it's lovely to receive a patch for a hoodie, and I've got some nice little badges and things, but it's it's not that. What I think you do get though is a lot of exposure, and I think that's one of those things that perhaps some people forget, that people are doing this to help, to be nice, to give back, and just because they're thrust somewhat into the spotlight because of that doesn't mean that they're wanting to be in that spotlight necessarily all the time. And things like that. Whilst there's a lot of vocal people like me and you who are happy to go and talk at events and speak to people and do things like that, there's a lot of wonderful contributors to the ecosystem who are quite introverted, quite shy, and who don't necessarily want that, and also aren't ready for with levels of scrutiny. I don't think I've never been given any professional public training on PR, especially not by Salesforce. I'm assuming you're the same. So it's a really interesting dynamic around that. So it is an interesting thing that I think just kind of popped in there. So obviously we've got all the books, we've got the Agile, we've got sustainability, we've got community events. I'm just mentally going through that list of the 900 things that Ines was mentioning at the start that she does. I think we've covered off a fair few of them. The one I want to kind of talk about last is your courses, because this is an area I think that you're doing a lot of at the moment, and I think having seen some of the courses, having seen some of the material, and knowing your style, I think is something you're really, really good at, kind of helping people learn and understand things in a way that perhaps some some of the Salesforce courses themselves aren't set up to do. So you've recently released a course on Data Cloud, yes?
Mhm. Yeah.
So in what's the 15-second pitch for what the Data Cloud course is? Not 15 seconds, but you know what I mean. The elevator pitch for the Data Cloud course, aside from it will get you certified.
Yeah, so that's the aim, right? There's 3.5 hours of content. It has some test questions as well for you to feel sort of a feel of how potentially the exam will be, and lots of demos on it. My aim is leveling up the playing field, and I do that with a lot of different things, but especially on this one on education. We talked about the overload of information. There is trailheads and there is everything like that. Now, it comes from frustration of not being able to have access to quality education, especially on something so new. So my aim was to demystify what the bananas is this about, how would you use it, what are the use cases, and different things that I work over the last 15 years that has touched on what this thing is trying to solve. Also giving demos of how things looks, because we all learn differently. I'm very architectural. I need to see things, right, to process information. So really checking lots of stuff in there. And I just want to see more trailblazers certified on Data Cloud. Like, think this is sort of the latest and greatest of Salesforce technology. You have to learn this, but you don't have to spend thousands of pounds on a course. I really hope I help people to bridge that gap and make it more accessible. It's great to see when people are already showing their new shiny certs. This is very new. This is from January. Like, literally, I had a contract falling through for messy budgeting. And I was like, all right, let's put this frustration into something productive. And I just went crazy the month of January. And yeah, release this. So it's fairly new. And I keep updated. So every month I go through some of the content and I add more things, update more things, because it's new. It's it's not so evergreen. I keep at it.
Yeah. So that's amazing, because I'll be honest, Data Cloud, when it was announced, and this might just be being cynical now, but there's a lot of Salesforce announcements of new products, and until the name has stuck for 18 months, I try not to get too attached to things, because things change a lot. Certain things are announced and are not GA and are not really released yet, and so yeah, with Data Cloud, it's one that I'll be really, really honest. Like, aside from the name of Data Cloud, I have no idea about it. So your course is on my list of things to actually go through, so I can get properly acquainted with it, rather than just kind of going, oh, it's another product somewhere that is is another SKU that Salesforce are adding on that is difficult to look at. So yeah,
Hopefully,
so it's.
You will be surprised how much of what this is trying to do you already solve or about. So yeah, I mean, for me, this like debunking the myth and make it tangible into what people already have experienced is important. This is new. So it's how you put your narrative and your experience out there. Although you may have not touched the thing yet, you have the skills and the knowledge, you can do it.
No, definitely. So I look forward to that. So, so just for the listeners, so you said how long was it? Was it how many hours of material?
3.5 hours. Few questions. I also have 2 sets of questions separately. So if you are someone that really wants to go through questions and stuff, I created 2 different bundles of questions for the exam as well. So
perfect. And where can people? I'll put a link in the show notes below. But where can people find it if they're overly keen right now and want to go look at it? Where would they go?
Udemy, please. And please look at the links from Paul, because the royalties work differently. So if you use that link, I will see the difference. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, please use the link below so that Ines gets the most from it.
Thank you.
I know from my Udemy course, there is a massive difference in the amount you get from just your link versus the others. That's brilliant. And any more courses planned that you can hint to, share us, or are we going to have to like hold with bated breath and just follow you on LinkedIn to find out?
You never know. But I did actually at the end of last year. I published one on Marketing Cloud. It's called Marketing Cloud Academy, and my aim is to release multiple ones. This one was 101 basics of marketing application, because I come from communication background and I gear sort of marketing related projects many times, and time and time again, I see the same basics not being looked after, and sort of sorting out your domain, your reputation, and everything after the fact is just a strain. So again, comes from frustration. Anything you can funnel that energy into something productive, and that's where the other one came in. And my intention is to put more things out there. Also, they fit very well together, because if you think about it, Marketing Cloud as exact target is the actionable application within the remit of Data Cloud, right? So that's one of the products of the family that is very well tied together, and it's going to become more and more apparent how we really need to ramp up with Marketing Cloud for the ones that haven't had the opportunity yet.
So that answers my question. So it's Marketing Cloud, as in what's probably called marketing. Is it Marketing Cloud? Not account engagement. Account engagement is what Pardot's called now. But it's exact target Marketing Cloud, not Pardot Marketing Cloud, right?
Yeah. And
okay.
I was lucky to use exact target before the acquisition, so
Oh, okay. So
I've seen some changes.
yeah. If anyone from Salesforce's product naming team listens to this, please just
stop.
Help. Yeah, please. Yeah, stop. Just let's get some consistency with the names and keep them for more than 6 months at a time. That's brilliant. Super. So thank you, Ines. That's been fantastic. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a ton from it. What's the one bit of advice or one kind of thing that you would encourage people to do? Yeah, what's Ines's one key kind of takeaway and top tip? I mean, the biggest one I'm going to take away from this is reviewing. When I'm thinking now, doing my own business planning projects, and thinking about that, is thinking about sustainability as a broader scope thing, rather than just a green thing, for want of a terrible phrase. But thinking about it more holistically is, okay, sustainability in the organization, how that interacts with the planet, how that interacts with the people I'm working with, and how that kind of works together. So that's been a huge thing for me to take away, as well as going and having a look at both the Food Force book and going to go find that biomimicry talk you did at London's Calling. So what would be the one thing you'd encourage people to think about, take away, or a tip you have for them?
It's very difficult. I have many. I'm going to go fast.
I mean, you have about 500 things you were doing. So, it's just one, not one per thing.
If it's only one that I'm allowed, is to say that each one of us, you are the creative force of your own life. That's it, right? And I find often that we trying to find the answers elsewhere, and the answers are within. You may need some help, coaching or whatever, to help you to get there and realize that, but you are the creative force of your own life. If I may, too tiny once more.
Go on.
Yeah, right. Another one is that always be learning, right? And that's sort of a theme as well from Trailhead and whatever. Just don't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, financially, 2024 is going to be a rockety year, and that shows that just don't put all your eggs in one basket and keep on learning. Life is full of flavors. There is more to life than just one thing. So, and your role and your job and your life should be many flavors. So find focus, yes, absolutely, but continue expanding and don't limit yourself. And the last one, which is sort of related, is just do what you love and love what you do, because life is perishable.
That's perfect. That's fantastic advice and a great way to end the show. So thank you so much, Ines, for coming along. I'm sure we'll have you back on again if not just to go through biomimicry in excruciating detail, but I look forward to all the different things you've got coming up, and I'm sure we'll have you back on in the future. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paul. I thoroughly enjoy all our meanders of life.
Yes, definitely. And I look forward to catching up with you in person soon as well. And thank you to everyone for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Remember to hit the like button, leave a comment on what you learned from Ines and what you most enjoyed about this conversation. And if you are listening on the podcast, remember everything's in the show notes, and remember to hit subscribe so that you get all the latest episodes. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll speak to you all soon.